Hey, my name is Neal. This is the Experience Podcast. From my whole heart, welcome. Now, Neal's my name. Neal's not who I am. Who I am is a multi-dimensional, infinite spiritual being that's expressing through a human body. I'm a child of God the Father, and I'm joined here today by Dennis. And I'm grateful to be with you, Dennis. And we're here in this moment, and um, actually, literally, the only reason we're here is through surrender. I know that's the only reason I'm here, and I can confidently speak. The only reason Dennis is here is through surrender. And you might be asking yourself, well, surrender to what? Well, we'll get into that in this video. Um, I'm a coach, and I assist conscious people in their 20s and 30s that are in the matrix, and it's specifically a mind matrix. That is the programs from our parents or teachers, social media, the government, like media in general. It's the mind matrix of perception, expectation, my truth, opinions. If you're in that matrix and you want to be with your soul family, I assist you with that. And my email's in the description, my Snapchat's in the description, so you can reach out directly to me, Neal, and I can assist you in navigating through that to be in a community setting, to be in a place where you're not going to a grocery store to get your food because your food's grown outside your house. And you can actually be responsible, like fully responsible for your food, for your water, for your connection to God, for having purpose in your life that actually transcends the 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 me, the name. Because like what would you do, you watching this, what would you do if you had more than enough food, if you had more than enough water, if you had more than enough community, like people you can just openly express to authentically as your true self? What would you do if you had connection to God? What would you do if you had a roof over your head? If all your basic needs are met, what are you going to do? How are you going to be? That's where I come in. That's where I assist you in getting in and moving to that place and remembering that you are worth it, and that that is available. Are you to choose it? So, welcome, Dennis. Introduce yourself, and we'll dive on into surrender.
Um, yeah, people call me Dennis, and I too am grateful to be here. Um, like Neil was sharing, um, I would not be here if I had not surrendered. And what that looks like is giving up everything that everything that I thought that I knew, and everything that I thought that I knew about myself, and everything that I thought that I knew about the world, all the programming, all the past conditioning, the domestication from teachers, preachers, parents, friends, and etc. Um, so that's why I'm here. And the fruit of that, um, and actually, I'm going to just go a little bit deeper on that surrendering. Is It has been a surrendering to what I did not know consciously, surrendering to Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, and just opening my heart and going, because in the past, it's also surrendering the mind and surrendering the emotions. Um, so it's a journey from here to here into your heart. And this is where all the programming lives. So if you're watching this video and you're like, debating if what I'm saying is actually right or wrong or good or bad or this guy's fucking brainwashed or whatever the fuck you're thinking right now. I have an invitation, and that is to place your hand on your heart and to observe where those questions are coming from. Because if they're coming from up here, you can't fucking trust it, because it's the fruit of those questions are the fruit of your past conditioning and programming from your teachers, preachers, friends, family. And if you want the other fruits, that's okay. If you want the fruits of greed and war and poverty and child sex trafficking and anger and hate and rage, if you want the fruits of that, then just go ahead and, stay stuck to your own opinions and to the domestication of what's going on in here. But if you want the fruits of peace, love, and joy, this is an invitation to surrender everything. Like, I'm saying everything.
What? Surrender what?
Everything.
Yeah, but how do I do that?
Great question. One way is to get on your knees and accept the fact that everything that I've ever been taught is a lie. And you're probably really questioning me now. Like, what the fuck is this guy even saying? Yeah, I said the same thing. That the questions were coming from up there. How is that even possible?
Or how do I surrender everything?
Faith.
Faith in what?
Faith in God, faith in Jesus Christ. It's also surrendering your perspectives, because if you're seeing yourself anything other than being whole and complete, if you're seeing yourself as a victim, or if you piss people off all the time, you're probably a villain. If you have a tendency to people please and help people when they're going through things in their life, you may be a hero. And if you think that the world is out against you, you're being a victim. And if you see yourself in any of those categories, you got to surrender all that, all of it.
So it's through the faith in God and the faith in Jesus that this is what I'm hearing you say, and I'm in full alignment with where you're communicating from and what you're saying. It's through the faith in God and the faith in Jesus that gives me any ground to stand on to even surrender. Because, see, if I don't have that faith in God and Jesus, and somebody tells me to surrender my perception and the programs that I've been programmed with, if I don't have that faith, I'm just like into nothing. I'm like, now that's gone, and I thought that's who I was, so who am I? But if I have that faith, that's solid ground that even when that perception is gone and when that programmed lie is gone, because of that faith, that is a solid ground to stand on. And the ground that it is to stand on is the ground of it is knowing that I'm not finite and that I'm infinite. Because when you don't have that faith in Jesus and God, you think you're finite. You think that if this perception goes, so do you. But when you have that faith in God and that faith in Jesus, it because Jesus represents the infinite nature that we are, because he lived it. So it is through that faith that we have the ground of infinity that we're grounded in, and we're coming from an infinite space, knowing that even when this perception leaves, even when this program leaves, even when this lie leaves, that's all right. I'm an infinite being. I'm still who I am, even without that perception.
I love that. Like, it's like the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Jesus was talking about when he said, when the rich man asked Jesus what it takes to follow him. And he said, you got to sell everything you have. You got to give up everything. Um, like everything. And that's what the rich man couldn't do is, and it's not even about the rich. It's about surrendering everything and getting to that base level of what Neal was speaking about, that foundation. And from there, from that space, like, what have you experienced from that space, Neal? Like having that as a foundation.
It's coming from that foundation is a doorway to a miraculous life. Like literally a miraculous life. Like if miracles aren't happening, then that's because that foundation isn't present. And when that foundation of being an infinite being is present, it life is miraculous. Like truly, tangibly, being able to visibly see miracles, hear miracles, um, see things manifest physically that there's no way that a finite being could like have that happen. But from an infinite space, it's totally possible.
Something also that I just heard that you shared is that first, before the faith, there's a there has to be a knowing of who you are and whose you are. Because without knowing that, and actually we spoke about this already, I guess. But that's also very important, is knowing who you are and whose you are. And then surrendering into faith and recognizing that there's nothing to be done because Jesus died for us, like grace, like there's nothing. And you said a miraculous life is the fruit of surrendering.
Mm-hmm. And it's specifically surrender to God, because in the old world they are forcing people into the perception of surrender through control. It's actually not even actual surrender. It's just full on control. It's what it is. It's submission, and people conflate submission with surrender, but they're actually different things, because submission comes from something being controlling, and then the thing being controlled submits, and surrender is being whole and complete, being sovereign, having your free will, and then giving it to something that is even beyond the 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 perceived limitation that we are and can have the perception of in this life experience. So in one of them, God isn't controlling us to have us surrender. God is, you see, and a key distinction here is when you submit in the old world, when you're, and it's submitting to like government mostly, or religious dogma, or media. Um, when you submit to these control agendas, then you have an experience of, and when you conflate submission with surrender, then in that scenario, you think you're being controlled through surrender, but you've actually submitted. You haven't actually surrendered because you weren't ever sovereign enough, you weren't ever full and complete to even be able to surrender. But you didn't know that because you thought surrender was submission. But now, so then you have the experience of being controlled. But now God isn't isn't looking to control us into submission. We're so free that God's just like, you just do whatever you choose to do, and I'm gonna love you anyways. And and so because of that, we then, once we discover who we are and whose we are and where we belong in the hierarchy of uh, oneness, that is, and this hierarchy comes from our difference. See, oneness is not sameness. We're all one, but we all have a unique difference. We're not all a nose. Some of us are an ear. Some of us are a hand. Um, and once we discover that, hey, I'm the hand, it's only once I've discovered that I can say, all right, I now surrender to this hand being now guided by the head, which is Jesus. And then ultimately, God is just Jesus in form, literally. So it's ultimately a surrender to God, but Jesus is the head of the body of Christ. And so we need to first discover what part of the body we are before we can surrender what we are to be used by something that's even greater. See, if I just think I'm the hand, but I don't surrender the hand to the arm, then the arm's pretty fucking bogus because it needs the hand surrendered to it to be able to use the full arm. So
how does one find what part of the body of Christ they are?
I think that is a discovery, and I think it's the reason we're here, and part of the large reason of why we're in the physical dimension is to discover and illuminate and unpack that. And the only way that I have an awareness of how to know like what part of the body you are is to is to is to give it a go and and give it a go by opening up your heart and then expressing your heart, and then there's something we're all inherently really great at, like phenomenal at, and we're phenomenal at this thing in a loving way. If it's not loving, then it's not like our difference. But if we're loving and we're great at it and we're being a contribution and we're uplifting other members of the body, then there's a high likelihood that we've discovered what part of the body we are. And so and and I like currently I like the part of the body I think I am is to inspire and serve people through food sovereignty, through the growing of your own food, and through that recognizing the freedom that's available when that's implemented. Like currently, that's the part of the body I perceive myself as. Now I'm open to having a new perception, and so I think not getting attached to thinking that you're this one part of the body is is a massive component, and I think you just need to, and this is how I've done it, is just find my heart, center myself in my heart, open up my heart, let it rip, and then practice the things that I'm good at. See, in the old world, we're taught to what you're not good at, do more of that so you get better at it. That's bullshit. Find out what you're already good at, which is inherent already inside of you, and it might be part of how you were brought up. Like we're not born into a certain environment by accident. There's a reason we were brought up that way, and usually that is part of our difference. Like all programming is not bad programming. Some of that programming God had us be programmed with to be part of the difference that we are.
Yeah.
And so really just honing in on what you're already good at from a loving space and then being a contribution is how I think you have an awareness of the part of the body that you have. And then once you have that, then you've got something to surrender.
And also hold on. Like there's a freedom to surrendering whatever it is, like um, for example, I feel the same way. Like I had a similar upbringing as Neal did, and I feel like that's also part of my gift. And bringing God's kingdom to earth is through plants and um, people getting their hands into the dirt. And so, what that's looked like for me is I grew up with the garden. I grew up on a farm, but I'm in a completely new land and a new environment here, where I'm at presently here in Costa Rica. And so there's fundamentals that are very important to that God's gifted you with. And for example, like the planting of the seed and knowing that there's maybe 10 seeds that you need to plant before you have one that'll actually produce fruit. So that principle, so not throwing the baby out with the bathwater is what I'm saying, but surrendering what I thought that I knew in regards to and from the context of gardening. Like here is a completely different soil, it's a completely different environment. So whatever your gift is, like there's foundational principles of your gift that are very valuable in your contribution of bringing heaven to earth, building God's kingdom here on earth. For example, if you're an author, if you've written books, um, and they may have contributed to the old economic model of the dollar and or perpetuating the like the economic model of the world and of greed and poverty and war and etc. Now you could be writing a book about um, bringing God's kingdom to earth. Like you're still writing a book, but it's just the message is different. The fruits are different.
Yeah, so surrender to God and Jesus with faith, that is access to freedom to be who you were created to be here on earth. And surrender to the government and the matrix system is submission to be controlled, to suppress why you were meant to be here on earth. And so it is through surrender to God and Jesus that you have access to freedom to be your true self and to express your gift of why you're here, why I'm here in the first place. So, do you feel complete? Yes. I want to invite you to the Remember Experience, August 22nd. There will be a link in the description. Make sure you check that out. And also, this channel is supported by people like you. Make sure you donate. You hit the donate button. It'll be bridgebucks.com/something. And I love you. And stay awesome.